Okay, everybody, let's begin. So first of all, thank you for taking time out of your day today to attend the new features webinar that has been included like in the March release. My name is Jeff Polina, and I am one of the senior success reps here at BigTime. So as I move along, please feel free to, ask any questions. In your question handle, I do have some colleagues in the background that will be fielding those. And, anything that maybe doesn't get addressed during this webinar, we will absolutely reach out to you directly as well. Okay, so let's begin. So let's just get into a brief overview of what will be included in today's webinar. So there's a lot of smaller features that were included in this release. So there were some updates in regards to tasks and phases. There's a universal search that was added. We added some updates to invoices as well as expenses, our utilization dashboard. We have a privacy policy in addition to user rights. And towards the last part of the webinar, I will then cover consolidated invoicing, which is one of the larger features included in the release, and also briefly discuss our Intact integration. All right, so let's begin. Okay, so just to start off, one of the newer features was the bulk task updates, which can then be done from our workflow task dashboard. And while we did have a bulk update feature before, we added to it. So if I check these boxes and then select bulk action, I can then now mass update my priorities, my start and due dates, even the hourly and fee budgets, in addition to the expense budgets. You also have the ability to then, mass link, your tasks or phases to service items as well as classes, and also mass update the fee type. So, this comes really in handy in the fact that maybe, you did some initial setup and you maybe forgot to link your task to service items, and then you're using maybe a task template to copy these tasks over into future projects. You can now, clean that up and link these two service items just in one fell swoop to save you some time. All right, let's move on to the next feature. We now have a universal search option, which is located towards the top right-hand portion of your screen. This is going to return, all jobs, contacts, or clients or staff that match within that. So for example, maybe I'll just type in one of my projects here, so Westmont. And what that's going to do is just going to bring up my Westmont factory job. I can click into it, and it's going to link me, directly to my project. Also, to be aware, so if anybody can't see this towards the top right, one of the things with Chrome is, if you actually just clear your cache, this will pop up. So for anybody experiencing that, just recommend, clearing your cache, and that will populate. Okay, so covering those two features, now let's kind of segue into some invoicing improvements. One of those being you now have the ability to bulk update your invoice PDFs from your draft screen. So if I navigate to invoicing, overview, and I'm just going to jump into my drafts here. What you now have the ability to do is if I check these boxes, I can then select bulk action, update, and in addition to being able to update like draft due and sent dates and statuses and terms, you now have the ability to pick what invoice PDF template you would like to select. So maybe if you're going to be mass emailing these out, you just really want to make sure that the correct template is selected. This is a great way to go about that. Okay. So in addition to that, upon creating an invoice, you now have the ability to summarize the invoice by task group. So just to show you that really quickly, I'm going to go to invoicing, overview. Let's click into my whip here for my project ABC. I'm just going to create, a standard T&M invoice. And as you can see here, I'm currently already subtotling by task group. However, if I were to break it out by task, it shows your group and then the subs. This is really a great way to just consolidate that, on the invoice. Let me just jump back to task group. So as you can see, consolidating by the group itself versus, breaking it out into those subs. So you have that added function as well. And, since we're really talking about invoices, we also have a new notification pertaining to invoices. So we now have the ability to notify users if any invoices failed to send. So, if you're bulk emailing those invoices, you can actually receive those notifications if those in fact do fail. So if I move to my company and then to our notifications tab, I'm just going to leave. That's going to be located under the general administration notifications. So I'm just going to click edit, and you're just going to select this drop down right over here. And that is the invoice email bounced. So if that were to happen, not only can you receive a notification within BigTime, but you can also receive a personal email as well, notifying you that the invoice has failed. So just be aware that, in order to receive those notifications, you must have, email notification turned on. And I'll revisit that very shortly just to, reiterate that. But, below that, we also have the syntax. So, what was the invoice? What's the name of the invoice? Who did it fail to reach? In addition to those individuals' names and, the recipient type and also the sent date. And, just to go over how to turn on those email notifications, if some of you are not aware, you just click this person icon towards the top right, my profile, and in your notification settings, you do need to make sure that this box is checked. All right. Okay. In addition, so since we're talking about notifications as well, while they are not, invoicing related, there's also a new staff team notification. So, when a staffer is added to a project, they're going to receive a notification, letting them know that they have in fact been added to that notification. So, under those, under the specific assignment notifications, So that's this project team assignment. So what that's going to look like, they'll receive that notification in the top right-hand portion of their screen and letting you know, hey, you've been assigned to a job team. I'm going to be able to click that, and it's going to let me know, hey, you've been assigned to Acme Corp, the South Wing project. And in addition to that, it's going to let you know all the projects that you've been assigned on. So as you can see, I have my South Wing. I've been assigned to Madison Ave, in addition to quality assurance. Okay. Also from there too, since we're talking about staff teams, this is a great way to segue into the new staff team feature that is available on that actual staff list. So as you can see, we went over those 3 projects that I was assigned to. So if I go to my company and then navigate to our staff list, I'm going to pull up my name here. We have this Teams tab now. So it's letting me know, hey, these are the jobs that you're assigned to in addition to, your actual project role. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to segue back into some invoicing adjustments that we made, but not actually on the invoicing screen, but on your invoice PDF styles. So for individuals invoicing out of BigTime and using our actual invoice PDFs, we do have some new features. So I'm just going to go to invoicing overview, actually invoicing configure. In my PDF styles, I'm going to click into my T&M with details. I'm going to select edit. So one of the new features that we added in this regard is the ability to sort receipts on the invoice to actually mimic the expense detail sort order. So in order to do that, I'm obviously you're going to need to include, your expense details on the invoice. So it's going to be located under number 3, and then time and expense. And, you have the ability to, select the specific fields that you would like to include. And I'm sorting currently right now by labor category. So, maybe I want to sort by, like travel, for example, or mileage. You could absolutely do that. And once that is selected, you can then navigate to your receipts, picking, how many receipts you want to include in the page. But you're going to select that last option. So copy, expense, sort. So it's really going to replicate the order of those expense details and what it was sorted by. Cool. In addition to that, we added 2 new fields on the time and expense detail information. So what you can now do is, you can include your task group on your time and expense details, in addition to including your week ending, once again, for your time details and also expense details. Okay. So, just pivoting from expense details to just jumping right into some new features that we included in the expense screen. I'm just going to navigate to, time expense and expenses. Okay, let me just jump into my unsubmitted expenses. So a new feature is, upon entering these expenses, the user now has the option to sort their unsubmitted expenses. So that is located towards the top portion of your screen. So you just sort by, and if I sort by amount, it's going to sort from the lowest denomination to the largest. Maybe we want to sort by date. You have the ability to do so. Expense types, in addition to project, and also vendors. Another feature that was added is also the ability to save and copy an expense. So this comes in handy, like, what if we have a long receipt with multiple expense items on it? What you can do is, you would include that receipt in one of your actual expenses. You could then click the little triangle right next to the save option, and then you can select save and copy, really just copying this, the same exact expense. And then what you could do is really just take another line item on that receipt and then adjust it. That way you're not, re-entering that every single time. So that's going to save you some time. Okay. Another expense feature that we have added was the ability to flag unpostable expense reports. So you're not going to be able to see that from this screen. So, for everyone who's posting, expenses as well as vendor bills, you're going to navigate to QuickBooks and post expenses. So the way it worked before was, you had to post something in order to receive an error message, right? So you wouldn't really know if anything wasn't properly linked beforehand until you actually got to posting. This will actually let you notify beforehand. So as you can see, let me just pick one of these lower ones. The prompts that you can receive, is, your expense category is unlinked, maybe your staffer isn't linked to a vendor or an employee within your BigTime site. In addition to that, the employee is linked, but no bank account exists. And also, maybe you just don't have your AP account, set up in your manage integration settings. So just to reiterate, now even before posting, you're going to know if you're going to run into issues or not. Okay. So moving on to a new feature that we included in our utilization dashboard. So people who are wondering, what is a utilization dashboard? This is available only for our premier level of BigTime. So I'm going to select Reports, Utilization Dashboard, and like utilization, obviously, what's my staffer's capacity? So how many like workable hours do they actually have? In addition to that, how much am I actually allocating, those hours out of their capacity? Therefore, how much am I actually utilizing them? So what you can do is like, you can always hone in on date ranges, for example. But you always used to be able to like hone in using our date filter. But now this is just for the month. What if I want to get some more granular detail as to, how much am I allocating per week? I can switch out to my weekly setting. I can hone in on that week, say, hey, okay, so I got James here. This is what I've allocated for him. So he's got a 40-hour work week, which is, pretty standard. So, I've allocated him to these 3 projects, so he's being utilized, 30%, 10% for each of those projects, in addition to like, what is he actually inputting against those allocations and how much of that is actually billable. So, the allocated utilization, input utilization, and billable utilization, and then, really being able to hone in on that within a smaller time period. Okay. So that's a new feature that we added to the utilization dashboard. Let's get into the hide tabs feature. And what I mean by that is, what if you're a firm and you don't really deal with expenses, and you don't want, staff coming in here and maybe adding some, bogus expenses. People who have free range of the site, I'm sure they'll run their own tests, right? So you can stop that from happening by going to my company, and active features. So just, to go through that example, if I turn this off and I select save, I'm just going to let that save. I'm just going to refresh my screen here. Now I don't even have that that expense screen anymore. So just be aware that this is not user specific. If you turn this off, it's for company wide. So just be aware of that, okay? In addition to that, let's just jump back into that active features. I just want to show the other portions that you can actually turn off. So if I go to my active features here, your vendor expense entry, time tracking, expense tracking. Do we want to turn off the workflow portion? Do we not even invoice out of BigTime? Are we just posting time to QuickBooks and maybe pulling time on invoices that way? You can turn that tab off as well. In addition to review and approvals. So, obviously you can turn all the stuff turn it all off. I would encourage you to utilize this information in BigTime. Reason being, you're going to get a lot more functionality out of our reporting feature. But like every firm and every company is different. So, you do have the ability to adjust that as needed. Okay. From there, as you can see too, now we have a privacy policy. So, a firm can enable this privacy policy page, when their staffers log into your BigTime site for the first time. A user will be forced to acknowledge the company's privacy policy when logging in. So I'm just going to check this box here. So, BigTime has a standard privacy policy. And, if the firm chooses to include like any additional text, so, maybe you want to include your own message, you absolutely can do so. Also too, if you update your privacy policy, all staffers will be forced to, will be forced to actually re-acknowledge the privacy policy. So the way you can actually, even track who acknowledged the actual privacy policy, BigTime created just a pre-built report for you. So I'm just going to exit out of this here. And now I'm going to navigate to Reports, Report Center. And that is going to be under Staff Reports and the GDPR privacy policy. So as you can see, my staff have not been cooperating, and I need to have them, sign off on that privacy policy. So it's just like a way that you can view this pretty quickly. Okay. An additional feature that we've added on the staff list is the ability to forget a staffer. So I'm going to move to my company, staff list, and let's pick James here. That forget staffer is located towards the lower portion of your screen, right next to delete, little triangle, and you're then going to select forget. So you now have the ability to forget the staffer instead of just simply deactivating them. Forgetting a staffer removes all of their personal information from your BigTime site, even including their name. So you're not going to really be able to, see that individual's name anymore, but you will still be able to see, all of the time, the expenses that were logged against the project. But once again, you're not going to be able to see the name of the staffer who logged that information. For that staffer, once that staffer has been forgotten, their name and email will just be updated to a system ID number, and their contact information is going to be completely removed from the whole system. You can, so really like for their staffer profile, it can be viewed and accessed by clicking the include inactive. Just be aware, like name is not going to be there, neither were the emails. So you're not really going to be able to tell who it was, but all that data is still on your site. And really just be aware that this action cannot be undone. It is a permanent change. So, if somebody has the potential of maybe possibly coming back to the firm, maybe somebody went on like sabbatical or they went on leave, maybe just the overall potential of them coming back. Do not forget, just mark them inactive. That way, you can still see all that information. And you always have the ability to like re-add somebody, but just kind of driving the fact home that, this is not an undoable action. Okay, let's get into another feature, which is really pertaining to like default roles. So like James here, for example, we have, he's a creative director. I myself am a project manager. And then we also have John, who's part of the production team. So with this setting turned on, you are going to have the ability of, when adding that staffer on the team tab, that default's going to automatically be applied. So just to show you what that's going to look like, if I move to my company job list, let's click my team tab. And what I can then do is if I pick, James, that creative director automatically populates. If, I pick myself, that project manager automatically populates. And then in addition to John, part of that production team, automatically populates. So pretty straightforward. Okay, well, let's get into some user right additions that we added. So one of those user rights being the ability to access personal data. So if I go to my company, I select user rights. I'm just going to click everyone. And that's going to be located towards the lower portion of the user rights, so the last one. So this access personal data. So, just to read this description here, the system can be used, to collect home and address information, alternate emails, home and mobile information, and other information that's considered private. So, if you turn this off, that's going to prevent those users in that security group from actually accessing that screen. So, for example, if you're a firm and you don't really want your managers to maybe see where their staff lives, you can make sure this is turned off, and they're not going to be able to see that. In addition to another add-on or new feature pertaining to user rights, now that an individual who, let's just say a project manager who needs to be able to view, edit bill rates, that's fine. But maybe you don't want them to have the ability to delete any time entries, which previously they could. So in order for an individual to actually delete time entries, they now must be a financial administrator. So just to reiterate, individuals are going to be able to make edits to that time. They're just not going to be able to delete it and completely remove it from your system. Okay, and that's something that they would just need to be turned on for the financial administrator if you need an individual who is actually going to be deleting time. Okay. Another new feature, it's just a simple save feature. So let's say, I am, in a site, maybe, I make some changes and then I try to, move to a different screen. Previously BigTime just wouldn't save it. Now it's going to let you know, hey, you made a change. Are you sure you would like to leave this page? And you'll just receive this prompt right here. And you say, oh, wait, I actually made a change. I need to, make sure I save that. And also too, I'm sure most of you know this already, but we do have continue. Excuse me, looks like my computer's just giving me a hard time here, folks. I was just going to talk about how you can make sure that you can turn on auto saving features for your site. Let me just jump into my site. Good. I was worried my internet went out for a moment. Okay, I'm glad we're back. And now let me just get into hide this. Okay. So with that save feature, now let's get into vendor bill updates that were included in the new system. So if I go to invoicing, QuickBooks post expenses. So really what we're looking at here, actually one second, I just need to switch firms. I'm going to navigate to QuickBooks post expenses. So currently it always defaults to show only unposted. If I uncheck this box, we really revamped this screen here. So one of the cooler features, if I click into these, excuse me, let me jump in here, sorry. Okay, so one of the cooler features is if I click into my actual vendor bill, so if a change has been actually made to a vendor bill in QuickBooks, the user can actually update that bill in BigTime by clicking the refresh button, which is located towards the lower portion of your screen. So really handy just to, make sure all your changes are current within your BigTime site. In addition to that, you also have the ability to import a vendor payment status of the vendor bill. So let me just cancel out of this for a second. And let me just uncheck this. So as you can see, if you log that payment, in your QuickBooks environment, that payment's then going to sync back in your BigTime environment, then leaving you with a green check mark indicating that that vendor bill has been paid. Okay. In addition to that, you can also track the last modified date for all posted and imported bills on your screen. So a modified column has been added to the post vendor bill screen, and if that vendor bill has been modified in QuickBooks, that column display towards the date will be updated. So letting you know, hey, okay, so this has actually been modified. I need to jump back into my vendor bill and I need to refresh to, show those changes. Okay. In addition to that, you have the ability, the vendor bill, this vendor screen, now shows projects, other, and total expenses. So, total project and other has been added. So, the projects column will provide the dollar amount of expenses just linked to the project. The other column will provide any other expenses not linked to a project. And the total is the combined amount of the bill. Cool. Okay, so that really takes care of, all of the smaller features that were included in the March release. Now I really want to get into consolidated invoicing. everyone. So for anybody who's attending that, really wanted to see consolidated invoicing, or maybe for any folks who maybe don't know what consolidated invoicing is, it's the ability to include multiple invoices from different projects that are under the same client onto the same invoice. So just to go to my company, let me just jump back into, my firm. I go to my company job list. What you can do is you'd have an individual invoice for, each project, and then you can then ramp that up into one consolidated invoicing. So there's a few ways we can go about this, and I'm going to show you each way that you can do it. The first way being to, just mass consolidate, right? So if I click into any one of my projects and I move to my contact info tab, which is your client information, if I scroll down here, you have the ability to consolidate invoices. Be aware, you don't need to have this box actually checked itself to consolidate invoices. This is really, maybe you just have a client where you strictly just do consolidated invoicing. You do have the ability of consolidating invoices after the fact, but this option here is if you just want to consolidate as you create them within the same day. So, this automatically consolidates job level invoices into a single client level invoices, and just really note that, you only automate this process, or we only automate this process for same date invoices. So to run through this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to invoicing overview, and I'm just going to click into my WIP, and let's get into, where's my Acme Corp. So as you can see, I have some time for my Acme Corp client. I'm going to just create a standard time and materials invoice. I'm going to just create a T&M. I'm not going to get into any sub-tolling features or anything like that. I'm going to select finalize. And this is just one of the invoices I'm going to consolidate. As you can see towards the right-hand portion of my screen, your invoice number, period, PO, terms, and your statuses, draft due and sent date. It's all grayed out, and you're not going to be able to adjust it on the individual level. You're going to have the ability to, adjust and edit this information on the main consolidated invoice, or the parent invoice, if you will. Okay, so that's just one invoice. I'm now going to go to invoicing, configure, or overview, excuse me. And, that was a time and materials invoice. Maybe I want to, for my other job, it's all fixed fee billing that I do. So I'm just going to, select my South Wing, which is fixed fee. There's no time associated to it. I'm just going to select next and click my fixed fee. And, I need a bill for my consulting, design dev, and also construction documents. I am then going to select finalize. And, once again, really the same thing of being able, not being able to, adjust these settings. That's all done from the parent invoice. In addition, this is also, it'll let you know that, it's part of a consolidated invoicing, and then you can view the actual consolidated invoicing from the screen. Before doing so, I'm going to add just one more. And folks that are probably asking hey, well, how do I maybe edit, my consolidated invoicing? I'm going to get in that in just a moment, but I'm just going to create one more invoice. I'm going to invoicing, overview, create another fixed fee invoice. I'm going to select my drop down, and I'm going to bill for my Westmont factory project. I'm then going to select next. I'm going to pick fixed fee. You can really pick any invoice calculator, and it's able to be consolidated. I'm going to select next. So, getting into maybe some software development, sprint 1 and 2, maybe some QA. So I'm going to throw this on an invoice. I'm going to select finalize. Okay, so you can see I just created 3 invoices. I had that box checked on the client level to consolidate all my invoices that are made within the same day for that client. I can then click here to view that invoice. Okay, so as you can see, now I have my Northwest Sales project. I have my South Wing project, in addition to my Westmont Factory project, all within the same invoice. Be aware, if I need to maybe edit my professional fees, or I need to adjust any verbiage of, maybe I want to put some notes here underneath consulting, or, maybe I want to, adjust my sprint 1 and I want to like pull it above, my sprint 3 and 4. Those edits need to be made on the individual invoice itself. You're not going to be able to make those changes on the consolidated invoice itself. So, you have the ability to, pull and move these around as you see necessary. Just kind of, adjusting these, maybe throwing some notes in here, whatever it may be. You can then select save and then, click to view. Once again, taking you back to that parent invoice. I kind of just jumbled these around here, so they're just a little still out of whack. But as you can see here, that note carried through in addition to the order that I selected them in on that previous screen. Let's get into some of these other settings though. So, just to, drive the fact home, if you need to make these changes, they need to be adjusted on the individual level. If you drop an invoice, it's not deleting the invoice itself. What it's doing, it's just going to create that, it'll just create that single fixed fee invoice. It's not deleting it. If you needed to essentially recreate a consolidated invoice, you can drop them, make individual edits, then re-add. You can completely drop, and then you can completely delete the invoice and start from scratch. There's really a lot of different ways that you can go about it. And like I said, I'm going to address those. And also too, you have the ability to then add your actual invoice number. If you have auto numbering set up, that's going to populate. In addition to that, you have a PO number field. Also, your terms. Also, like your status of your draft, your consolidated invoicing, and your draft sent and due dates. In regards to, like the actual clients, you may be saying like, well, there's multiple client contacts for every single project. How do I select that? You're going to select this little triangle right next to your client name, and every individual that you have set up on your contact info is going to populate right here. So, you have the ability to, maybe select Fred, for example, or, Nick. Just be aware, since it's on the actual invoice itself, you're only going to be able to pick one person or, one address to send your invoice to. If you're sending out like a physical invoice in the mail, you do have the ability to, let me just put an invoice number here. Just going to select save. You still have the ability to, pick everybody and then, include them in the email that you're going to send out. Reggie came from the other invoice that I dropped, if anybody's wondering that. Okay. So that's one way to create a consolidated invoice. I'm just going to exit out of here. And so the way I did that though, I'm just going to revisit this just to, show you the check mark that needs to be selected. That's all done from your contact info tab on this screen. You also have the ability to consolidate, individual invoices. What if you created a few different invoices and maybe you don't have this box checked? You might be wondering, how do I consolidate it that way? That can be done from invoicing, overview. I'm going to click into my drafts. And, it's a lot easier to do this. Anybody who maybe doesn't have, client included, I highly recommend that you just add your client tab. It really just makes everything a lot easier when it comes to grouping and also consolidated invoicing. It just makes everything just look much more like digestible. You're able to, really clearly see what invoices are linked to what. Also, too, you might be asking, well, what does a consolidated invoice look like in our drafts portion? this is what it looks like right here. So it's going to let you know, hey, this invoice is consolidated. You still have that invoice number, the date, in addition to, the individual invoices. So, you can still click into the individual invoices as well as view the overall consolidated invoice. But, circling back to my example of, well, what if I don't have that box checked for my clients and I created invoices and I need to consolidate them? If you consolidate individual invoices after that they've been created, one thing I just want to make very clear is in order to consolidate individual invoices, you must have the same draft date. If I were to just try to consolidate these two, it's not going to happen. The way we designed it, you will need to, make sure you have the same draft date. You can absolutely add an invoice that does not have the same draft date to an already consolidated invoice. That's going to be my last example, and I'm going to show you for consolidated invoicing. But so just to reiterate, in order to consolidate individual invoices, the draft date must be the same. All you need to do is just check these boxes right here. And I'm going to click this drop down and then click consolidate. So, the 3 invoices that you've selected will be combined into one consolidated invoice. I'm just going to select yes. Little wheel is going to spin and it's going to consolidate my invoices. And as you can see, now we have Project ABC, Wacker Avenue, and Madison Avenue all consolidated on the individual invoice. And then my last example showing you, you can absolutely then add another invoice to an already consolidated invoice. Doesn't matter what the draft date is. So see how we have Franklin Avenue as a standalone, and I might realize, oh, you know what? I actually haven't sent this out yet. I created this invoice in March and I need to, add this to my invoice. All you really need to do, once again, just check these boxes, select consolidate, and then there you go. Then, I have my Franklin Ave already added to it. And just to show you that again, maybe even, so these have the same draft date, but as you saw, even if, this date is, whatever, maybe let's say it's in January. I'm just jump backing in the invoicing overview, clicking into my drafts. Sorry, I clicked through that fairly quickly. But so, we have that draft date. Once again, you can then just click the 2 and then bulk consolidate. So just be aware, you're not within, if I were to delete also these other invoices, I do have the ability of if I have that box checked, you also have the ability, if you have the box checked on the client level, to, have all invoices consolidated, have all invoices that are created on the same day consolidated. You can also just mass create of checking this and then bulk creating. If that box is checked, it will therefore then create one large consolidated invoice. And those are really the ways that you can go about it. So just to, just do a quick overview of that invoice process or consolidated invoicing process is, first on that job level, the client level, making sure that you have this box checked. Every invoice created on that same day will therefore then be consolidated. So that option of checking all those boxes, just creating them, they'll be consolidated. You can then also consolidate individual invoices as long as they have the same draft date. And then you can also add an invoice with whatever draft date to an already consolidated invoice. Okay. So those are really the ways that you can go about creating a consolidated invoice. Another thing that I wanted to cover, so sorry, I had all my tabs ready before we experienced some technical difficulties. What I wanted to show was, one second here. What I wanted to show is we also have the ability to actually integrate with Sage Intacct. So anybody who maybe doesn't use QuickBooks, or maybe they're looking to move away from QuickBooks, we now have the ability to integrate with Intacct. And Intacct is another accounting software, but now BigTime has the ability to push and pull information between the two systems as well. Works very similar to our QuickBooks integration. So any clients out there who are utilizing Intacct and did not know that, please don't hesitate to reach out. We will gladly get you connected. And also too, I just want to talk about something that we have in the pipeline that some of you might be interested in. So we are currently about to release a payment feature. So anybody who is interested in, having the ability to send invoices out of BigTime and have clients pay those invoices from the invoice itself, we are currently piloting that. So anybody who would really like to see that, please reach out to your success rep, whether it be myself. I do see a lot of my clients attending today's call, which is great. So awesome job, guys. But like I said, if you're interested in that payment feature, reach out to support. Say, hey, I saw in the webinar, that you guys are piloting a payment program. We can definitely, have a discovery call with you, and we can get you set up with that. In addition to that, you can always reach out to your sales rep, not your sales rep, excuse me, your success rep. But also too, you can also reach out to your sales rep as well. Can't hurt. Okay, so that was really everything that I wanted to cover today. I'm just going to open up these questions right now. I want to take a look at some of these. I'm sure my team did a great job of answering them as I went along, but just want to just double check this as well. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys, I'm just kind of reading through these quite a bit, so. Also, too, feel free to keep those questions coming as well. Okay, looks like everybody had their questions answered. Okay. All right. So any question that maybe did not get addressed, we'll reach out to you directly. But definitely looking at this list here, looks like they were all addressed as well. So, I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of their day to, go over this webinar. If anybody, has any questions, feel free to reach out to us directly. We are absolutely here to help. So any questions, that you do have, feel free to utilize the support channel as well as myself. Also too, I definitely want to hear what you have to think about these features. Also too, if there's other features that you want to see, we do really take feature requests into consideration. So if there's anything you really want to see, please let us know. And, if it's a viable feature and it really can benefit not only yourself, but other organizations, we'll absolutely include it. And also too, we do, run our business off of reviews. So any, review that you can leave us on one of our many review sites would be greatly appreciated. We will, in exchange for each review, we will give you a Starbucks gift card. And also, if you fill out a G2 Crowd review, we will send you a $25 Amazon gift card. So, definitely would appreciate any feedback. I'll send out those the review emails to everyone. So if you do have some time, it would be greatly appreciated. Also, let us know what you thought about this webinar. Feel free to mention my name, and just kind of circle back around. If there's anything that you would like to see in the product, please let us know. We truly do value our customers' feedback. So anything you want to see, please let us know. All right, well, so that will conclude today's webinar. Once again, everyone, thanks for sticking around and bearing with me through that technical mishap, and, hang in there during these times. Hopefully this will all be over soon, and, we'll be back in the office before you know it. All right, take care, everybody, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.